Hey everyone, so has a friend or a family member ever asked you to be a guarantor on a loan? Co-sign for them? It feels like a pretty simple way to show you trust someone, but what you might not realize is that it's wrapped up in some pretty serious legal stuff. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the law of guarantees so you know exactly what that signature means before you ever put pen to paper. Let's dive in. Okay, let's paint a picture that's probably pretty familiar to a lot of you. Your friend comes to you, they're trying to get a loan, maybe for a car, maybe to start a business, and the bank says, sorry, you need a cosigner. Of course, you want to help them out. But what are you actually signing up for when you put your name on that dotted line? What's the real commitment? At its absolute core, a legal guarantee is just a three-party promise. It really boils down to a super simple formula. You are person A, the surety. You're making a promise to person B, who is the creditor. That's almost always the bank. And that promise is all about person C, the debtor, your friend. You're basically looking at the bank and saying, look, if my friend here can't pay you back, I will. So let's get our cast of characters straight. First, you've got the debtor. That's the person who gets the loan. Then you have the creditor, the one who provides the money. And then there's you, the surety. You're the one standing right behind the debtor, making the whole deal possible with your promise. Your word is literally the safety net here. All right, now this is where things get really, really interesting. And honestly, it's the part you have to pay the most attention to. See, not all promises are created equal in the eyes of the law. The exact words on that document you sign can completely change the game for you. So what are you actually signing? And right here, we hit the most critical distinction you need to know: guarantee versus indemnity. A guarantee is what we call a secondary promise. Your job is to pay up if the main person, the debtor, can't. But an indemnity, well, that's a primary promise. With an indemnity, you're not a backup anymore. You're on the front line promising to cover the creditor's loss no matter what. The difference is massive, and as you're about to see, the consequences are even bigger. And boom, here it is. This is the whole ball game. Let's say the original loan agreement between the bank and your friend turns out to be invalid for some legal reason. If you signed a guarantee, guess what? You're totally off the hook. Your secondary promise can't exist if the primary one is gone. But if you signed an indemnity, you're still on the hook. The bank can walk right past your friend and come straight to you for their money. Okay, so let's say you've signed a proper guarantee. You get the basics. The next huge question is, when does the clock start ticking? When exactly can that creditor come knocking on your door, asking you to pay up? The law has this very fancy, kind of intimidating Latin phrase for it: strictissimus juris. I know, it sounds pretty serious, but here's the twist. It's actually a principle that's designed to protect you, the person giving the guarantee. So what does that Latin phrase mean in plain English? It's basically a golden rule. Because you're taking on this huge responsibility, usually for zero personal gain, the courts are going to read that contract in the absolute strictest way possible. And any gray areas, they usually get decided in your favor. The key thing to remember is this: the contract means what it says, and not one single word more. Okay, you might want to brace yourself for this next part, because this is what shocks most people. Your legal duty to pay kicks in the instant the debtor defaults on their payment, the very second. And here's the kicker. The creditor does not have to tell you it happened, they do not have to try suing the debtor first, and they do not have to sell any other collateral, like a car, before coming directly to you for the cash. Your promise isn't just a last resort, it's immediate. All right, I know that last bit sounded pretty heavy, but the very same law that puts that weight on your shoulders also gives you some very specific ways out. Think of these as legal escape routes that can completely cancel or discharge your promise. Let's take a look at what they are. This one is a biggie. You agreed to guarantee a very specific deal, right? Well, if the bank and your friend decide to change that deal behind your back, maybe they give your friend more time to pay, or they hike the interest rate, you can be completely let off the hook. You didn't agree to that new risk, so you are out. Simple as that. This makes perfect sense when you think about it. If the creditor just lets the main debtor off the hook entirely, your secondary promise to back them up just vanishes. And what if there were other co-sureties with you? If the creditor lets one of them go, you might be discharged too, because that changes the whole dynamic of how the burden is shared. Now, the creditor doesn't have to tell you every single little detail about your friend's finances, but what they absolutely cannot do is mislead you. And, crucially, they do have a duty to tell you about any really unusual parts of the deal, anything that a normal guarantor would have no reason to expect. If they hide something important that increases your risk, that guarantee can be thrown right out. So just let that sink in for a second. It's a really powerful idea, isn't it? The deal you sign is the only deal you're on the hook for. Any side deals, any secret changes made without your okay, could be your golden ticket out. That strictissimus juris rule we talked about, it really has some teeth. Okay, so let's imagine the worst has happened. Your friend defaults, the creditor comes to you, and you do the right thing. You pay the debt. Is that the end of the road? No way. In fact, it's just the beginning of a new chapter where the law gives you a powerful set of rights to get your money back.
Your very first and most basic right is called indemnity. It's simple. You just paid your friend's debt for them, so now your friend legally owes you that money back, every single penny. You now have the right to sue them to recover the full amount that you paid on their behalf.
Now, this next one is like a legal superpower. It's called subrogation, and it means you get to literally step into the creditor's shoes. So did the bank have a lien on your friend's car as security for that loan? Well, guess who has that lien now? You do. Any security, any advantage the creditor had against the debtor now belongs to you.
And what if you weren't the only person who guaranteed the loan? Let's say there were two other co-sureties, but for some reason, you were the one who paid the entire debt. You don't have to carry that weight all by yourself. You have the right of contribution. That means you can go to the other co-sureties and legally demand they pay you their fair proportional share. So when you boil it all down, being a guarantor is a pretty serious deal. You're putting yourself on the line financially for someone else. But here's the most important thing to take away from all this. You're not alone. The law itself is looking out for you. It gives you rules, it gives you defenses, and it gives you rights to make sure that promise you made is treated fairly and strictly. The real question is, who's looking out for you? The answer is, the law is, but only if you know it's there.